Robbie K, good evening guys, it's Robbie K coming at you with another movie review. Tonight we get to the latest horror thriller movie that is hopefully going to be storming the theaters with lots of cash because it's been advertised out the wazoo. Yes, tonight we talk about the latest feature hitting up the Conjuring universe called The Nun. Don't know what it's about? Well, you gotta see The Conjuring 2 to kind of make the connection. But essentially explaining the origin stories of one of the big spooks of the Conjuring universe, and potentially how he connects to the entire universe. Yes, it's about money and advertising. Yes, it's about a lot of things in terms of cheap scares, but you know what? We love it. So Robbie K's review is coming at you, starting with a stage 1 as to what the heck it's about. To be honest, stage 1, our summary is essentially this. You know, The Conjuring is actually one of my favorite horror films, and I like when a story starts connecting similar to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And lo and behold, The Nun actually did a really nice job from a story aspect. Now, yes, there are going to be some plot holes, some jumps, and a little bit of cheesiness to kind of go with all your goodness. But at the same time, you essentially get the fact that there is actually a good storytelling element there. Fans of the series who like jump scares are going to find plenty of those moments to kind of make you shake, jump, and perhaps laugh at your friends as they react and squeal, which a couple of my fellow compadres and I laughed when our audience members couldn't stop squeaking in surprise. But it has all the kind of usual techniques, and if you're a fan of this universe, it feels very similar to kind of the scares. It's not as scary as the first Conjuring or a couple of other installments, but at the same time, it did a nice job using the gimmicks that it needed to kind of get your creep factors on, especially with the setting. Overall, it's definitely a good horror popcorn thriller epic, and it's just one of those that I believe a lot of people will probably enjoy because it just fits very well in the universe. So, you know, kudos to that. Is it the best of the series? In my opinion, certainly not. That one is still probably going to the first Conjuring, but it does a fantastic job kind of connecting some points, yet managing to stay on its own. Worth the trip to the theater? If you're a horror person, while probably not as good as Hereditary in terms of shock factor, this one definitely has more of the story element and jump scares that you like. So until then, that's stage 1. Let's get to stage 2. So if you don't want the details, this is where you kind of peace out. Whereas if you want the scores, skip to the end of the video for me. Alright, stage 2. We start with the likes. Well, as you can kind of guess, I like a story aspect with my movie, and a scare to kind of put everything together. And again, The Nun did that. Essentially, making sure that it fit into the universe. The Nun does a nice job, as I said earlier, being its own story, but finding ways to connect to all the cameos that we saw in Annabelle Creation and, of course, The Conjuring 2. You get a sense of it, you get an idea, and the story works into setting up everything and trying to make the most of a very limited and a very, again, small cast. In regards to kind of the setting, that is probably the scariest aspect of it. And Abbey, while probably not the normal place people are going to go visit, is definitely a realistic setting. And kind of traversing the medieval castle with all of its hidden corridors, old world aesthetics, and effectively kind of cold, chill-hearted shadows is going to send you probably a little bit into the nightmare realm, and this movie does it. The setting is beautifully done to give you the maximum in terms of creep factor from use of the shadows and stuff, but outside of that, it's just a haunted playground that a lot of movies would love to dabble in, or a lot of daredevils would like to go and try to spend the night for ghost seeking. So the setting is perfect in there. Jump scares are there, and I gotta give them props because they did a nice job utilizing some of them to maximize that creepy atmosphere, so bravo to them. There's a number of scenes where you'll definitely see it coming, but it utilizes the setting so well that the jump scares get that maximum jump potential, even though, again, I really wasn't jumping that much. In terms of the demon and the makeup, you know, I love giving makeup artists their props. So bravo to the entire crew who made the monsters come to life, because it was fantastically done in those regards and aspects. The pacing is good. This isn't a horror movie that makes you want to beat your head against the wall or nearly make you fall asleep. If you remember my review from last week with The Little Strangers, That one was a little tedious and felt like 4 hours when it was actually less than 2 hours. This one is not the case. It has the blockbuster kind of pace and personality to go with it, so bravo to them for that. In regards to anything else, the acting is actually solid, and I'll give them props for, again, having to hold a lot of the weight on their shoulders. Everybody did a very nice job, at least playing their character parts and going the direction that they wanted to do. And for one of those characters, I like is that the comedic timing of him was actually well received, and probably the least forced lines of the entire enchilada of this movie. It works very well in terms of it, and it was balanced to not be overdone. But that's probably all the likes outside of the fact that it's just a fun film. And a good horror one regardless. Now let's go to the dislikes. In regards to the story, yes, it's there, but the direction they took, I gotta say, is a little campier and a little more down the cliched road with some eye-rolling moments. I'm all about the way that they went with it because, you know, I get what the series is going. It just went a little too kind of, I guess, video game-ish, comic book-ish, the way it go on the route they took. And that probably is where it maybe fits a little differently than where the other universes have come from. I can't say more because I'll spoil it, but essentially that's kind of where the story takes the eye-rolling twist. So that's the component of the story I dislike. In regards to the acting, as I said, they do a good job for the most part, but there are those moments where the direction took a little cheesy or grandiose movie magic approach. And if you like that kind of stuff or it doesn't bother you, no problem. You're going to be just fine with this. However, if you remember The Conjuring, where it was a little more intense and felt kind of like it was in that situation, that's probably where this is going to fail, to be honest with you, because it gets a little outside of its zone. Volok, the demon that we already know, you know, he does a really nice job, and there are some times where they utilize his powers exponentially into the full factor creeptastic mode. But sometimes when it gets to the little more climactic parts, that's where it loses its edge, because they went down more of a little hokey powers and components of it. Though I'm not insulting any religion things whatsoever. It was just probably not as creepy as some of the other monsters that have haunted the hallways of the Conjuring universe's various settings. In regards to it, as I said, there's a lot of predictable scares and there's a lot of predictable tactics, so that's probably where it fails. The other ones had a blend of creepiness and jump scares that actually worked because they were super surprised. But of course, this was years ago when the first one came out, so maybe they're just a little older hat than we realized. Nevertheless, I can honestly say that I wasn't as scared in this one as I have been in others, and that's just because the jump scares were a little too predictable and a little too kind of obvious coming out, and that just prepares you. Some of the other forms to which they took as well to try to scare you, I applaud, because some of them were sticking to the stories, but some of them were a little forced for me as well. But again, that's not going to be as up in the air for people, and some of them were just not needed, but they were there anyway. So I can't say it was the best utilization of scare tactics, but again, it's not awful. In regards to that, though, I'm trying to think if there was really any dislikes, but I really can't say. I guess I was hoping that if they were going to continue this universe like I was doing my research on, there would have been a bit of a teaser. So I can be a safe spoiler alert and saying that there is no teaser this time. So once the movie's over, you're free to go. Outside of that, as I said before, the Nun does a really nice job of sticking exactly where it needs to be. It does a good job connecting stories, and really just thrives in the people who love this universe. They're probably going to like the story aspect. There's enough scares in there to probably get your fill for it, though again, it's not the best in terms of the horrifying, nightmare-inducing one that can come with it. Doesn't mean it's a bad movie, just means that it wasn't my favorite in this universe. And I'd say that it was definitely worth my time in the theater, especially getting to go see it with friends. Though again, it's not the most original like we've seen in some of the more recent films. Overall, I'd probably give it about a 7.5, to be honest, in its category. Maybe an 8 if we want to do whole numbers. But movie overall is probably about a 6, 6.5 in those regards. So anyways, we got plenty more coming. Robbie K is happy to give you his thoughts. So please like, comment, share, and help me make this better. Until then, guys, have a good one, and we'll see you tomorrow.